back to my channel. My name is Sharifa. My music name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, welcome. This is just documentation, guys. I know that I said I would not be coming with any more targeted individual videos. It's just funny how that works, where you plan not to do something and then you know how unpredictable this program is. And oftentimes you do have to record and document to defend and protect yourself. So I just wanted to document that for the last 3 days, I have been experiencing Havana-like symptoms. I haven't really felt that sick, aside from this morning, but it has been affecting me, like making me feel slightly nauseous, making my head hurt. And what Havana syndrome is, guys, for those of you that are not familiar, Havana syndrome is basically a syndrome that happens to victims that are targeted. There are U.S. diplomats that have complained about Havana syndrome, as well as everyday regular Joe Schmoes like myself. It's an equipment that the military uses basically to make a victim sick. What happens is you start to hear like a hum sound, and this has everything to do with being microchipped. They microchip victims against their consent with their insect drones. And once they microchip you, I believe this is how it works. I'm not certain. This is how they are able to do the Havana syndrome. I believe they're sending a frequency to your microchip. I'm not sure, so don't quote me, but this is just from the research I've done. I believe this is what's happening. I believe they're sending some sort of frequency or sonic boom wave to your microchip. And so what happens with the program is, if you don't react negatively, listen to what's happening. I also want you all to hear the street theater that's happening in my house. There's also street theater going on in my house. So I just wanted y'all to, I wanted to document that as well. But anyways, what happens is with the program, and I've said this in prior videos, when you stop reacting to the psychological warfare, so when you learn the program and you realize that it's designed to cause negative or adverse reactions out of you, it's called reactive abuse. And I've played that video in I've played the clip of what reactive abuse is in several of my different videos. But the program is designed to get a reaction out of you. So they will psychologically assault you 24/7. So send you videos with subliminal messaging in it, noise campaigns, etc. And what they do is, with these videos that they send you with the subliminal messaging, they're painting false narratives. So it's called shadow networking. And what they're doing is what's called soft warfare. So once you get deemed as terrorist or threat, for whatever reason, and it can be very unfair why they throw you on the list, it could literally be that somebody didn't like you and decided to pass your name on to the government, and then you just get thrown on the list. It's that simple. There's no due process. You're not afforded to fight for your rights. Once somebody passes you through the network and you get put on that list, it doesn't matter whether you've committed a crime or not, you get put on the list. And that's how it goes, and you start receiving some very heinous treatment. And so if you listen to my story, you'll hear what happened to me. And some of the reactions I had in response to what was happening to me, because I didn't know I was targeted, and I didn't know that this was an actual program that I had been thrown into. So that's basically what's happened, guys. If you've listened to my stories, please check out my stories, by the way. Please check out my How I Became a Targeted Individual summary and or full story. Actually, you can check out the last video I posted where it says how I became targeted without the extra details. And in that video, I shared just a clip from my full story, just talking about how I became targeted, the misunderstanding that led to me being targeted, and then the things that followed after. Anyways, I don't want to get into that and start talking about some of the things I've said already. That's kind of redundant, and I have a bad habit of doing that. But this video is literally just documentation. So these last 2 to 3 weeks, I've created and uploaded videos expressively articulating what this program is designed to do, how it works, the tactics, and also why the false narratives that they've been projecting onto me are not true. I've provided receipts I've provided evidence, and I've clearly refuted the program. And so, unfortunately, if you're sane minded or level minded in this program, and you're not somebody that reacts to the tactics or the abuse that's used in the program, they up the ante with the physical. That's what starts to happen. And so basically, I haven't been reacting the way that I used to, at least. The whole reason why my targeting went viral is because I didn't understand how the program worked. I tried to relocate off island, thinking I could just start over, and not realizing that this was some sort of government program I had been thrown into, not realizing that I was targeted, just thinking it was some sort of spiteful retaliation because of the text message I sent, not realizing that this was way more serious than what I actually realized. So when I tried to relocate off island, I actually resigned from my teaching job. I would have never done that had I known how this program works. But anyways, I realized basically when I tried to relocate that something more sinister was taking place because of the things that started to occur. Me realizing that I was being followed, me getting stalked by droves and droves of people, just weird, crazy spiritual warfare, some crazy shit I've been through, right? So I had these crazy reactions in response to what was happening to me that I didn't understand. And the negative reactions were taken and used to propel my targeting. And that's how my targeting went viral, but that's how the program works. I'm just a very, very poor example, or you could say a good example of what this program, not poor example, I'm a good example of what this program looks like when it works. Because there are other targets that have had egregious reactions too. That's how the program is designed. But unfortunately for me, my reaction isn't the kind of reaction that the program is designed to get. The kind of reaction they want to get out of you is you acting crazy and flipping off, maybe punching somebody in the face, cussing, looking crazy, and then you get arrested or you get thrown in the mental asylum. The way my brain works, I'm not a physical person, I never have been. So I'm more so going to use my brain and articulate what's going on, and I might start doing research and exposing certain things. So it's dangerous for someone like me to be in this program because they're going to always put someone like me at a higher threat level. So that's basically what happened to me. Not only did I start to do research and expose the program, but then I also started to share some offensive content on top of that. So that's why I am suffering more than any other typical target. And that's why my shit went so viral. And so this is what's going on with me. So, anyways, these last couple of weeks, I've documented and basically exposed more parts of the program, just from doing research. That's how I am. I've always been somebody that like to learn and do research. And obviously, me being in this program, of course, I'm going to utilize my mind and do research and figure out what's going on. And so that's what I've been doing, and I've been sharing what I've been learning. And so I think that obviously put me at a higher threat level. So I made these videos and I clearly articulated what was going on and refuted all of the false narratives that they tried to project onto me with their engineering, their social engineering. So they have something, and I've talked about this in my recent video, guys. Check out my pertinent information about the targeted individual program part 1 and 2, right? In those videos, I talked about the technology that they use on targets. It's called shadow networking. So they have an actual AI generator that they use to hack all of your social media apps and any technological device that you use. They hack it and they push false narratives at you all day long. So basically, what they'll do is, for instance, or example, with your YouTube, they'll hack it. And in your recommended, how typically in your recommended, you'll see videos related to things you like to watch. It's kind of like an algorithm. With the shadow networking, what they'll do instead is push videos at you with false narratives in it. So they'll start pushing videos with false narratives and subliminal messaging and stimuli to sensitize you, right? So they'll push, listen to the yelling, they're possessed, listen. This is what microchipping sounds like. A lot of people talk about what happens to targets. The people around you seem to be microchipped as well. When you're targeted, everyone around you is microchipped as well, and they seem to be under some sort of mind control. So there will be moments where they act crazy or they do weird, strange things. It's called street theater, but they're under some sort of mind control. So listen to what's happening. It seems to have quieted down now. Anyway, so it's some sort of mind control that they seem to be under, the people around you when you're targeted. It's very scary. It's creepy stuff. But anyways, I've really been staying clear of posting negative things. I've been trying so hard, but you know how this program is designed to break an individual. So the more positive you are, and the more that you articulate and make sense rather than acting ignorant and getting angry, the harder they rain down on you. So they'll start to do things like Havana syndrome, where if you're not having the reaction that they want, they'll start to physically do things to get the reaction out of you. So they'll literally start to hit you with energy weapons or what's called Havana syndrome, where basically you'll hear like a hum in your ear, similar to how a cicada insect sounds. It's like this weird humming sound that you'll hear in your ear at a low frequency. And then your head might start to hurt. You know, you might start feeling a little bit out of breath. You might start feeling nauseous. You might start feeling like you need to, flatulate and also defecate. These are the type of things that will happen when they hit you with those energy weapons because it's messing with you internally. And I'm not even sure if it's some sort of radiation that's being utilized as well, because that's also something that's used on targets. And I believe, I don't want to bear false witness, I suspect that I was a victim of radiation poisoning a few months back as well, because I did start to get black smudges under my eyes and I did lose a lot of weight. This was around the time when I was still reacting angrily. So, in other words, the kind of reaction they want you to have. And I was saying things out of my mouth, out of anger, rather than taking my time, relaxing, trying to surpass the human instinct to rebel against injustice and unfair treatment. That's what you have to do as a target. You have to surpass your human instinct to defend yourself against unfair treatment. And you have to have patience and you have to somehow be able to move past what's happening to you. You have to be able to get past the unfair, unjust treatment and excuse me, I'm sorry, I heard noise in the background. You have to be able to move past the unfair, unjust treatment, and you have to be able to use your head and think calmly under pressure. And you have to do research, you have to learn about the tactics used in the program and the ways that you can defend yourself and refute all that they're saying. Because basically, what they do is they create false narratives. So they'll basically find out everything they can about you. This is how Eric Snowden talked about it. By the way, Eric Snowden was a whistleblower. So basically, he worked for the Patriot Act. So you know how after 9/11, they enacted the Patriot Act. And the Patriot Act basically means that they have the right to listen to everyone in the US, in the United States, personal phone calls. So any personal phone call that you make, even any video that you make, even Facebook. Facebook was created by Mark Zuckerberg, and it's actually a tool for the FBI, just so you know, right? So all of these different things they use to keep tabs and track of all of the individuals in America. And they used the Patriot Act as an excuse, I guess you could say, to invade your privacy. So when 9/11 happened, basically fear mongering was utilized to enact the Patriot Act because people were afraid after 9/11. They were afraid that national security had been breached. They were afraid of terrorists coming in and taking over and blowing places up and not feeling safe. So they went along with what the government enacted, the Patriot Act, because of fearmongering. So they allowed their privacy to be invaded and they allowed that act to be enacted, right? They agreed to the Patriot Act. And then they, you, me, all of us, Americans, I mean, I never agreed to it. I was a child, but Americans agreed to the Patriot Act. And fear mongering was used, because 9/11 caused fear amongst the people. And so they agreed to allow to have their privacy invaded. And that's what the Patriot Act is, basically. They have the right to listen to your private phone calls, have the right, kind of in a way, to spy on you. Not what they're doing with the targeted individual program, not where they're having insect drones with cameras in your personal space. That's illegal. That's illegal covert harassment. But the other things, or to listen to your personal phone calls, etc., they have the right to do that. And you can be punished and thrown on a terrorist list for your opinion. You don't have to have committed a crime. That amendment right where you're supposed to have freedom of speech, your First Amendment right, is a fallacy. It's not real. You don't have that right or that luxury. If you say something that pisses off the wrong person, even if you haven't harmed a soul, they can throw you on the watch list. You don't even have to have said anything that was threatening. All you have to do is say something controversial enough to catch attention, and you can be thrown on the watch list. That's how it works. So you don't really have the First Amendment right. It's all an illusion and a fallacy. Anyways, so that's what's going on with the Patriot Act. Basically, they were listening to people's phone calls, and if they heard one word that sounded like something they didn't like, so it didn't even have to be like you threatened anybody. It didn't have to be that you committed a crime. If they heard you, for instance, say something that sounded controversial that they didn't agree with, they can put you on the terrorist watch list. And so Eric Snowden kind of saw what was going on, and he decided to blow the whistle. He didn't think it was right. The fact that they were invading Americans' privacy to the level that they were with the Patriot Act, and then also the fact that they were actually throwing innocent individuals on the terrorist watch list. Now, that's not the case with me. I am an innocent individual that was thrown on the terrorist watch list, but my story is a lot deeper. It's a lot more complicated and a lot more twisted. How I got thrown on the watch list and the controversial things that I said, but this is just an example of how you get thrown on, how you can get thrown on, right? Mind you, there are 4 categories of targets, and the category of terrorist is the smallest sliver or the smallest percentage of targets in the whole population, right? So you have 4 categories. You have the whistleblowers like Eric Snowden. That's a small percentage of targets. You have the category I'm in, category 2, where you pissed off someone in power and you got targeted. And then you have category 3, which makes up the largest percentage of targets, which are just random innocent civilians that they pick at random because it's some sort of experimental program. I'm not trying to go into too much details about this stuff. I actually said I wasn't going to talk about it. But unfortunately, because of the kind of mind I have, because I'm strong-minded, I don't break easily, because I'm inquisitive, because I'm somebody that's a fighter, right? I wanted to be a lawyer because I'm good at defending myself, because I'm articulate, and because I was able to find evidence to not only expose the program, but also refute it and refute the false narratives they tried to project on me with their shadow networking. Because of that, I'm suffering more. You have to understand they do more to you when you make sense. They do more to you when you articulate things. They do more to you when you're not reactive. So if you're not acting ignorant, and no disrespect to any targets that do, because that's just natural human instinct to get upset when you're being beaten or whipped, and that's figurative language. They're not physically beating or whipping you. Maybe in some cases, I wouldn't be surprised. But when you're getting a beating and you didn't do anything, a natural reaction would be to buck back and fight, right? That's a natural reaction. Well, you get punished for your natural reaction. It's called reactive abuse. So the program is designed to antagonize an individual into an adverse reaction and then punish the individual for the adverse reaction. So once you learn the program and you realize what they're doing, and they're trying to bait you into a reaction, and you stop reacting at least negatively, instead you start to articulate and you start to provide evidence to refute the tactics used and also to defend yourself. When you're somebody like that, you suffer more in this program because then they up the ante with the physical. They might start hitting you with energy weapons. They might start hitting you with Havana syndrome, theater, all this weird stuff, trying to get the reaction because they're not getting it anymore. And it's just like, damn, well, what can we do? And so they will up the ante with the physical. And that's literally what I've been experiencing these last couple of days. It's just been the craziest thing ever. This humming thing has been happening actually for quite a few months now. Since the last neighborhood that I moved from, this humming thing has been happening. But when we moved to this new neighborhood, the humming thing was way worse, way more invasive. And I did notice that when we first moved in, that they were doing it to me heavily. I had a bad headache for weeks when we first moved here. And then I of course, kept making my videos and articulating and refuting things. And they kind of laid off of the humming thing. But I noticed in this last week, these last 2 weeks, I've put up some really good videos with good information. My pertinent information about the Targeted Individual Program video, where I'm talking about the social engineering that they do with their shadow networking software, actual government software that they use on targets to, again, hack your social media, hack all of your technological devices and apps to push false narratives. So for instance, again, they will push videos into your recommended on YouTube, projecting stimuli, whatever it is they're trying to sensitize you to, and creating false narratives to warp your view in reality. That's what they do. They actually sent me the movie It too. And at the end of that movie with the clown, I guess they were trying to portray me as it. They're trying to get me to believe that I'm some monster clown. This is what they want. They want to make you believe that you're this horrible, heinous thing. And they use all of their freaking tactics to try to get you to have a warped view of yourself. So you have to have a strong sense of self when you're in this program. But anyways, trying to paint me like I'm it the clown, right? With their crazy shit. And at the end, they basically answered or gave me the tactic that they're using, which I already figured out anyways. They didn't have to show me it. They said, this is how you beat the clown. You just have to get it to believe bad things about itself. That's basically what they said. You have to get it to believe that it's not, whatever it is, I don't remember verbatim what they said, but basically how they destroyed the clown was getting it to believe bad things about itself. So they said, you're tiny. And so the clown got really small. And they said, you're weak. And the clown got really weak because it started to believe what they were saying. And it said, your heart is beating slow. And his heart started to beat slow. And then they ripped it. This is, I know, violent, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you what happened. They ripped the clown's heart out and squeezed it into smithereens. But basically, this is how they destroyed the clown, by getting it to believe lies about itself. And that is what they do in the program. They give you the answers in these damn subliminal messages that they send you. You just have to be smart enough to see what they're telling you. They're literally trying to get you to believe lies about yourself and have a warped sense of self. And this is how they destroy you mentally, psychologically, if you allow them to. And then if you're too strong and that what they're doing isn't working, that's when, scarily enough, they'll up the ante with the physical. And that's where you got to stay prayed up. It's scary. It's a very scary program. But anyway, guys, it's not a tangent. I needed to say those things. But basically, this video is just documentation, because I just noticed these last 2 weeks I posted some really good videos that not only exposed more of the tactics used in the program, but also again cleared my name and refuted the social engineering lies that they tried to get me to believe about myself and tried to get others to believe about me. I refuted it very clearly. And so they keep sending me stuff about the honey badger, and the honey badger is hard to beat, and, stuff like that. Like I'm somebody that's hard to beat. Like I'm one of those targets that's hard for them to freaking malign with their program. So anyways, these last 2 weeks, they've just been going ham on me. And I've been trying not to be reactive, because I do have a job that's pending and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. And they know that too. So I've been trying really hard not to be reactive to some of the tactics used. But it's to the point now where it's like they're doing the Havana syndrome. It's like literally the humming sound. It made me so sick this morning. I was nauseous. Like I said, it made me defecate. It made me flatulate, all these different things. My stomach was bubbling. It's really like physical stuff after a while. And it's like, I got to document. I have to talk about what I experienced. So, I'm not going to bear false witness and say that the military did this to me or whoever's targeting me. But I am going to say that I am a targeted individual. These tactics are used against targets. And I am experiencing Havana-like symptoms. And so I just wanted to document that. Another narrative they keep trying to throw at me is selling out or selling my soul, right? They just sent a video and the hum was super loud again. They just sent a video in my freaking newsfeed on YouTube about selling stuff. It was Wendy Williams and her husband, Kevin, or her ex-husband, Kevin Hunter, and basically talking about how he sold this and he sold that because he's basically running out of money. I know this is irrelevant to what I'm saying, but I'm just quickly giving y'all a rundown. Running out of money because he cheated on Wendy, had a baby on her. She divorced him. He tried to get over on her and get alimony, but there was a clause that he didn't see, what basically said if she lost the show, he wouldn't get alimony anymore. And so she lost the show. I think she did it on purpose. The lady's smart. She's acting crazy and sick. I don't even think she's that sick or crazy, but she lost the show, and so he wasn't getting the alimony that he thought he would be getting, right? So he's basically now suffering karma, right? And lost everything. And he's having to sell all of these expensive things that he got with her money, right? So basically that's the video I was watching and I was listening to it. But they kept talking about he's selling this and he's selling that. And one of the things they like to do as stimuli to sensitize me is send me things about selling as a hint at one of the false narratives about me selling out because of me doing poetry that I started months ago, right? I've already refuted this bullshit in so many videos. It's bullshit. First of all, if I sold out, I would have been rich. I would have been famous. It wouldn't be what's going on now if I had sold out. So it doesn't make sense. And then second of all, if you really read the Bible, you would understand that your soul is not yours to sell. So you can't sell your soul. If you really understood the Bible, you would understand that. You can't sell your soul. The ultimate sin is cursing the Most High's name. You cannot sell your soul. What you can do is die in sin, and then you'll go straight to hell and burn. You can't sell your soul. It's not yours to sell. So that's bullshit in the first place. But second of all, it doesn't even make sense, the narrative that they're spinning. Why would it randomly start a few months ago? Why would I randomly start back doing my music randomly? Poems, by the way. It's not even music. I don't even sound like Meg Thee Stallion. I don't sound like Nicki Minaj. I don't sound like Lotto. I don't sound like any of those mainstream rappers that would even be famous. My music is so freaking different. It's not even music. What it is poetry over a beat. It's so different that even if I weren't targeted and my shit were popping, it would never be mainstream. It would be considered alternative. The stuff that I do, the poetry that I do, it would be alternative. It wouldn't even be mainstream. It wouldn't be music. It is like music because there's a beat there, but it's poetry with a beat in the background. That's what it is. I'm not a rapper. I'm not rapping. If you listen to what I'm doing, it's not rapping. And literally, I started doing my poetry again a few months ago because everything else that I tried to do kept getting sabotaged. I kept getting freaking backlash for doing regular things to progress myself. You know, I already dealt with everything that I dealt with. I resigned from my teaching job because I was being targeted here on island. I tried to relocate. The shit followed me. I was stalked ruthlessly. I almost lost my life several times. I ended up coming back to this island, right? I didn't try, I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful, you know, to the people that threw me in the program. I actually sat there and listened to them respectfully, despite the fact that I felt like I had been sabotaged and stabbed in the back. That's how I felt. I'm just keeping it real. I felt like the punishment did not fit the crime. You know, I felt like it was overdue what was done to me. But I still sat there. I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful. You know, I know some people down here that freaking beat their parents. I'm not gonna call people's names that were never targeted like me. So it's just a me thing. It's not anything else other than it's just a me thing, right? So, anyways, I sat there respectfully when I came back and I listened to whatever advice they were giving me, thinking the thing would stop. And then I went in my room and it continued. The harassment, the noise campaigns, the gang stalking, etc., the being watched on camera, it didn't stop. So I sat there in my room angry about what was happening and not understanding why it was happening to begin with, but still trying to be productive. So I sat there and I said, Sharifa, think, what can you do that's going to work with your situation? And so I started thinking about, okay, well, I have a degree. I have an English major. I like to read. I like to write. I like to do research. What's something that I can do to be successful from the house? And so I started looking into careers that you could do from home. And that's when I came across the tech field. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, I like computers. I like tech. My ex, the one that I talked about in my story in several videos, the one that, you know, y'all know the main ex. I don't have to go into the details. He was a computer science major, right? So I found that to be interesting. Also, my brother-in-law is a computer science major. So these are things that I had already encountered before from people in my close circle. But then also too, I like computers. I do. I've always been kind of like a video nerd type of girl. You know, I like video games. You know, I like computers. I'm good with computers. So I was like, wait a minute, that's something that I might enjoy doing, and I can do that from home since I'm being targeted. This is what I thought to myself. So I was literally looking through different types of careers in the tech field and trying to figure out which one would be best for me. Now listen, they're doing the Havana Center because I'm making sense. Anytime I make sense, they start to do the loud hum in my ear. Anytime I start to make sense. So, anyways, I was looking for one of the career fields in the that I would be good at, that I would enjoy doing. And so I was looking at front end developer. I was looking at back end developer. I was looking at PHP developer. I was looking at cloud developer. I was looking at all of these different types of developers. I was even looking at sales, because if you get in sales, you don't have to learn all the little intricacies. You don't even have to learn how to code. If you get into sales, you all just have to learn the product that you're selling. So you just have to learn whatever product it is that you're selling. And once you learn that, you can basically become a salesperson in the tech field and make money. Now, mind you, when I said sales, I heard noise in the background, again, with their lies, painting their lie, false ass narrative, right? Anyway, so let me continue. I'm gonna bust it down. Give me a minute, because I've busted down in several videos and they know it's a lie too. They just don't like me and they're painting wicked, evil lie narratives. It's terrible what they're doing. But anyway, so let me continue. So I was just looking at the different career fields and trying to figure out what to get into. I knew sales wouldn't be for me because of the personality that I have. So even if I could do it from home virtually, you know, and do the sales position in the tech field, I knew that wouldn't be for me because I'm not a gregarious person. You know, I am good at selling myself. Yeah, I'm using that stimuli. I am good at selling myself in interviews, and this is how I got jobs in the past before being targeted. But as far as like selling a product and stuff, especially now that I'm targeted to, you know, I just knew that probably would not be the career for me. So I was like, okay, now I'm going to look into things, the other career fields in tech, like actual coding, you know? And so I was looking at the different types of developers, and I saw that the back end developers had to deal with more math based type coding languages. the algorithms resembled math. So it's not exactly math, but it's similar to math. And I've never been good at math. So I knew that wasn't for me. So what I started looking into was front end development. So I was looking into learning HTML, CSS. I was looking into Python. I was looking into SQL. I was looking into JavaScript. And those are the things I was trying to learn so that I could become a front end developer and basically salvage what I could of my life and work from home. That's what I was trying to do, despite the unfair treatment and knowing that I didn't deserve to be in the house like a hermit and I should be able to go out like anybody else and work a regular job. But still, I didn't let my anger consume me. I didn't flip out like how some people would have, right? I didn't do that. Instead, I was positive and I was like, let me find ways to work with this weird situation I've been thrown into unfairly. So that's what I was doing. And I taught myself how to code. I started slowly but surely teaching myself how to code. So I was teaching myself JavaScript, I was teaching myself HTML, and I was teaching myself CSS. And I had successfully learned CSS and HTML very quickly because those are not complicated coding languages. And actually, in coding land or in the land of developers, a lot of developers don't even consider HTML and CSS to be coding because it's that simple of a coding language. So I taught myself that. And then I also started teaching myself JavaScript, which was more difficult. To me, that actually kind of resembled math in a way too, but not like how the back end coding is, like some of those back end coding languages. So I was enjoying it. I was teaching myself and I was taking my time, and they were doing one set of noise campaigns and taking the current every minute, and just antagonizing for no reason, And so I got mad because it's like, you keep doing this. I'm like, what did I do? Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to sabotage my whole life? And they kept doing it and taking the current. And so I started back then not knowing my life could have been in jeopardy. Not understanding how deep and how far reaching this damn thing was, not understanding how serious this thing was, right? So I was complaining because I felt like I had every right to. I didn't feel like anything that was being done to me was fair. And I felt like I had every right to complain. And so I was complaining and I was cussing off at the mouth every time they would take the current. Because understand, I'm sitting in this room, right? This little small hot room with a computer and internet, and that's all I have in there, right? While they're all staring at me. So imagine, they have the little mosquito drones with the cameras on them, and everyone in the neighborhood is watching you, right? Like a movie show, right? They're all sitting there. Can you imagine how uncomfortable that is, especially for somebody with social anxiety? But anyway, they're all watching me and making noise campaigns. Mind you, the people in that neighborhood are related to that guy that I had the cyber stalking, cyberbullying situation with. And I even saw someone in my close circle in the bush talking to his dad. And then I got gaslit for making videos about that situation. This is how twisted this program has been for me. Anyway, so this is what was going on. A lot of noise campaigns and just being stared at and feeling uncomfortable while I'm trying to be positive. I'm not even being negative. I'm keeping my mouth quiet despite not even feeling what happened to me is fair. I'm keeping my mouth quiet and just trying to figure out ways to salvage my life and be positive, right? And so I'm teaching myself the coding languages and I'm creating a portfolio. This was a few months ago. And also trying to have some little side income while I teach myself to code, because I knew it would take a while to teach myself to code and to get good enough to get a job in tech. I knew that would take a while. So I would have to have some sort of income to the side in the meantime. So I was also on Indeed and I was also on LinkedIn, and I had hooked both of those things up. And I was also on Fiverr and I had hooked that shit up too. And I was trying to create a writing business on Fiverr. I even created some presentations on Canva to represent myself, right? And what I was offering. And then I also built up my LinkedIn and my Indeed. And I started applying to online jobs like call centers, writing business, online writing jobs, virtual teaching assistant jobs, virtual assistant jobs, whatever, customer service, online jobs, all of those type of stuff, the whole gamut. I was applying to all of those type of things and I was hearing back immediately from people because I have a good resume. And I had hooked up, like I said, my Fiverr, and I had hooked up my Indeed, and I had hooked up my LinkedIn. I even went as far as to get a typing certificate so that they could see that I can type fast. I even, got a gold speed typing certificate. I went and I got my web developer certificate on free code camp. So even though I knew I wouldn't be advanced enough to get a job in tech just yet, I still went ahead and did some projects on free code camp and got a web developer certificate. I went ahead and I got my TEFL certificate. So that's teaching basically foreign language speakers English. So it's a little bit different to being a high school English teacher where you're teaching English students how to write. It's different. With a TEFL degree, you're kind of teaching students that don't speak English at all how to speak English. So it's different, but it's still similar. Um, so I went and I got that degree too. I went and I was doing a lot. I was really trying to do a lot to be productive. And just everything I was doing was getting sabotaged. You know, every freaking job that reached out to me, the gang stalkers would reach out to them and it would turn into a joke. It would turn into bullshit. You know, they shut down my Fiverr. They started messing with my Fiverr, you know, started almost messing with my LinkedIn in a way too, because all of the jobs that were reaching out to me on there too started turning into bullshit, right? Kept taking the current. So I couldn't even continue to do my portfolio. Every minute taking the current, messing with me, learning how to code and creating my portfolio. Every minute taking the current. So of course I'm human. I got mad. And I didn't know that this was a program. I had just started to learn that it was a program. When I came back at the end of last year, right? I came back, I think, in November, around November. When I came back from experiencing all of those things that I had experienced in the States, where I was gang stalked and harassed, brutally stalked on the roads, and all the things that I experienced, I realized that something more sinister was going on. So I realized this was more than what I thought it was. This was more than just some sort of spiteful retaliation. I realized some weird thing was going on that they were doing because too many people were involved in the States with the gang stalking and it was too well synchronized. So that was where I realized I need to do research and figure out what this is that's really happening. Because immediately I was thinking witchcraft. I was really, for years, I had already suspected that somebody had done witchcraft on me, you know, and I had told the people in my close circle that years ago too. As a matter of fact, they thought the same thing because of an incident that happened. You know, if y'all listen to my full story, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not trying to go into details about that. But for years, I had suspected that I was a victim of witchcraft. But after this happened to me, you know, I was almost certain that that's what was going on. I was like, this is some sort of spiritual something. I'm like, all these people chasing me and doing the same things. And it's like they're syncing. It's like synchronicity, you know, and this weird, creepy stuff they're doing. I was like, this is some sort of weird spiritual thing. I was almost certain it was witchcraft. So that's why when I got down into my car in Florida, by the time I had migrated back down to Florida, this was when I tried to relocate off island. I started to dig into the Bible heavily and I started to share things that I had learned years ago. And I went beyond what I had already learned. And I even started to share some offensive content that didn't need to be shared. You know, I started sharing some controversial things about Bible books that were taken out of the Bible. I started sharing some controversial things about America, you know, just some crazy stuff because I was in a warped sense of mind. You know, I was being stalked by all these people. Obviously, I was aware of the fact that this was some sort of government program. I had at least figured that out, because of all the police vehicles and emergency vehicles and helicopter, you know, crazy, you know, military people with the vest on with the legs spread out when I'm doing my DoorDash, you know, all these weird things that were being done. I started to realize this was some sort of government, whatever it was. I didn't really understand. I didn't understand it. And I didn't know I was the target. I didn't really know exactly what was going on, but I knew it was spiritual and I knew it had some sort of connection to the government. And so I was like, okay, this is tied back to the text message I sent, obviously, especially with some of the stimuli that they were presenting to me. So I was like, something is not right. I said, something is not right and I need to pray. So I sat in my car in Florida and I started to look up Bible videos. And the Bible videos, and I'm going off on a tangent, I'm not trying to go back there. The Bible videos, though, were literally strictly for me. The Bible videos I was looking up initially, I was looking at Bible videos for spiritual protection. I was looking at Bible videos about protecting you from spiritual warfare because I felt like there was witchcraft on me. And then the more I looked up those videos, it's like the more it agitated the spirit on the people around me because they started to get really, really angry and they started to zoom by for certain things and, you know, throw rocks on my roof. And then I wasn't aware of the shadow networking technology that's used on targets. I didn't know about that. I didn't even know I was a target at the time. So purposely, when I'm looking up these Bible videos, trying to find videos for spiritual protection, because I felt like I was under some sort of spiritual attack, they kept sending me videos about lust and about predators and about basically just things alluding to angels watching and things in the darkness coming to light. And so the more these videos would play, the more I'd be like, damn, every time I'm looking up videos for spiritual protection, these type of messages are being thrown at me. I'm like, I know I didn't do anything. What is going on? I was like, this is witchcraft. This is what I was thinking because I know I didn't do anything. And as these videos are playing, they're zooming by in the background. You have to understand it was every car on the road in Florida. All of these different cars zooming by. They're driving in by my vehicle, throwing shit on my roof. Just weird, creepy, spiritual, demonic attacks is what was happening. And so I was having these egregious, not egregious, it did turn egregious. It turned postal, but I was having these outrageous, anxious reactions. I would start to breathe funny, like I became traumatized. I started breathing funny every time those type of messages would play because I knew they were going to zoom by and act crazy. So I started having this reaction where anytime those type of videos would play, I'd be breathing funny. And the more I breathed funny, the more they were using that reaction to propel whatever it is they were trying to project onto me, and the more crazy they acted in the background. So that fear and that anxiety turned to rage. You have to understand, if you're someone that didn't do anything and you have all of these people on top of you doing this wicked shit to you, you start to get angry, you start to get livid, and that's how the program's designed. They paint false narratives, they get all these people riled up and involved, right? And so they're harassing and targeting this one human being, this one individual, and the individual has an explosive reaction. That's common sense that's gonna happen, right? So for me, my explosive reaction, I've never been a violent person. I wasn't physically busting anybody's head or punching anybody like some targets do. That wasn't me. Instead, what my egregious reaction was sharing offensive shit. So I stopped watching the Bible videos for me, and I started watching it to engage the gang stalkers. That's Satan. Was able to take hold, right? So I started watching the Bible videos for the gang stalkers instead of watching it for myself like I was initially doing. And I started sharing offensive shit. I started sharing racial propaganda, Hebrew Israelite propaganda, just a bunch of different, like really offensive stuff that I didn't need to share. And I was literally just doing it to antagonize the gang stalkers back. I started coming for Christians. I started coming for Caucasian people. I started coming for Jewish people, like everybody, like a little everybody, because I felt like everybody was coming for me. And so that's what I did. And they used those moments in my car where I was reacting to the abuse I was receiving, and they used that to propel my targeting, and that's how my shit went so viral. So I'm like your classic example of what not to do in this program, and also what it looks like when this program works. I'm an example of what it looks like when this program works successfully. So anyways, I went off on a tangent. I don't even know how I got to talking about that, because I was supposed to be talking about, oh yeah, because I was trying to tell y'all that I didn't realize I was a target until last year, the end of last year. So anyways, when I got back to island now, because obviously things were so bad up there, eventually I had to come back to this island. When I got back to this island, I knew I had to do research and figure out what the hell was going on. And so I just typed in, because I knew I couldn't be the only person on this earth that had ever experienced something like this. So I just typed in being stalked by groups of people. That's what I typed in, I think, to YouTube or Google. I don't remember which one. And what came up was gang stalking. And so that was literally the first term that I came across that pertained to the targeted individual community. And from there, it was history from there. I just started to learn more and more and more. And I discovered I was a target. And that's what led to me making videos. I made my first video in December of last year. So when I first came back, I learned that I was targeted around, I want to say November, like late November is when I learned that I was a target. And I started learning about this community. But in December was when I created my parts 1 and parts 2, my initial videos, how I became a targeted individual videos. And those videos got deleted, obviously, guys. I've told y'all in my prior videos how all of those videos where I was on camera got deleted. But I created those videos to tell my story because I realized that's what a lot of targets were doing. And once I realized that I was targeted, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm targeted because I sent a text message. I'm targeted because of that. I went through all of this because of that. And so that's when I started telling my story and realizing I had to use my brain and turn into my own lawyer. It's literally what I had to do. But I wasn't making a bunch of videos back then. I literally had just made my part 1 and part 2 video in December. And I stopped making videos. I didn't continue with the videos. The videos didn't start back until the nano shit started happening. So I made my part 1 and part 2 video telling my story, and then I was done with the videos. I was trying to be positive and see how I could work with this weird situation that I had found myself in. And so fast forward now, that was when I was, at the beginning of this year, looking into coding and looking into an at-home career field that I could do. So I was teaching myself how to code and stuff, and they kept taking the current, and all of the jobs that I was trying to apply to kept getting sabotaged, the online jobs. They even hacked up my Fiverr that I had put together so nicely to the point where I ended up deleting it. These are the things that were done, that kept being done to me. And so I was just like, oh my God, you done this so much to me already is how I felt. And now you're doing this? Like, what is really going on? Right? So I was getting angry and I was cussing off at them out, not knowing that this thing could go so far that my life would be in jeopardy. I never thought it would be that serious. I never thought that. else I wouldn't have ran my mouth the way that I did. But I never ever thought my life would be in jeopardy. So I was just running off the mouth at the mouth because I felt like I had a right to. And I remember like I was kind of cussing and just saying these, these people so wicked. How could they do this? Just stuff like that. That nature of things is what I was saying. And every time they're taking the current, they're doing one set of noise campaign in that neighborhood. And, I'm doing things like trying to write a screenplay and making noise campaign about that and just making me feel miserable and uncomfortable. And so obviously I had a human reaction, like popped off at the mouth. I never cussed the people in my close circle. I never put my hands on them. I know people down here who have hit their parents for lesser things. I never put my hands on my parents. I just cursed. I was just cussing out at them. Not even cussing them either. Not even to their face. I was more so in my room. Of course, I'm being watched, just cussing like, man, how could they be so wicked? I never even called them out of their name. I never said bitch, this, nothing like that. Never. Right? And so they're painting like I'm this horrible, this terrible child that's doing this. I'm like, what? And so I'm just like, this false lie-ass narrative is crazy. Anyway, and really what it is you have to understand I just offended a lot of people. So they know I'm right. They know what I'm saying is right. But they're so freaking in their heart with their grudge because they're offended by the things that I said that they're not even taking into consideration that what I'm saying is actually true. They know what I'm saying is true, They just don't care. It's because they're pissed off about the things I said that offended them and they're holding a grudge. That's what it's really about at the end of the day, just so you understand. Anyway, so I was sitting there just trying to make the best of my situation and also popping off at the mouth. That's the most I was doing, just popping off at the mouth, like saying things like they're wicked, how could they do this, that type of stuff. And so then I noticed that they started sending death threats to my pool game because ever so often I would get on my pool game. If I wasn't doing the coding, and I was doing that 24/7, I'd wake up bright and early in the morning and be on that computer all day long teaching myself how to code and building projects. That's why I have a portfolio right now that you can view on my YouTube. If you scroll down, you can see my portfolio. And I still want to do more work to that portfolio, but I kind of put that to the back burner. And I actually have a different goal in mind now. Now I'm looking at speech pathology. Not to go off on a tangent, guys, but a coworker of mine, a former coworker of mine, when I was teaching still, was telling me that she was looking at getting her master's in speech pathology. And I was telling her that I was thinking about law school. And then out of curiosity, I looked up speech pathology and I saw that it was something that I thought I would enjoy, especially being that I myself kind of had a speech impediment growing up. Not really. It's not like I had a stutter or anything like that, but I do have trouble with public speaking and I am somewhat socially inept. So I thought that would be a good career field for me. So when she told me about that and I looked into it, I was like, wow, I might do this myself. I like this, so I do have to give her credit for that. I did get that from a former coworker that I taught with. Anyway, so that's what I'm looking at now. But back then, I was, trying to get into the coding and I was looking at becoming like a tech developer. That was the next step that I thought I would be doing. I'm at a different space now where I'm more so looking at getting my master's in speech pathology. But back then, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do the coding. And so they kept taking the current and stuff, and I was just like crowing and cussing off at them out. And every now and then, if I wasn't doing the coding, which I was doing, like I said, from morning to night, if I wasn't doing that, I was taking a little break, I would be playing pool. I really like to play pool on my game. I actually like pool in real life also. But I like the game that they have, the app where you can play the game. And so, of course, with their shadow networking software, they would be hacking my pool games and playing against me with avatars that contain stimuli. And one of the stimuli they started to present to me around that time, I guess because I was popping off at the mouth, understandably so, with what was happening to me, they started sending me avatars alluding to death. So it'd be like an avatar with the Black Death bow or an avatar with a rest in peace dove, or stuff like that. And then they would click on the message. You know how you can click on the automated message, like say, good job or nice shot. They had one automated message that said the clock is ticking, and they love using that. That's stimuli for me. They throw that at all targets, by the way, not just me. I realized they use it on all targets, even Nigel Nicholson, excuse me. And I don't know him that well to be calling his name in my videos, but I did watch a few of his videos. He's a target I was just learning some information from. And I saw that he was talking about the fact that they're always watching their watch with him. So I realized that's something that they do with all targets where they allude to your time running out. It's fear mongering and it's psychological warfare, in addition to the other things that they do. So anyways, presenting clocks and hinting to me about being patient, like they're patiently waiting for something bad to happen to me, or the time is running out, the clock is ticking, all this type of wicked stuff. These are some of the stuff that they were sending to me as stimuli about my time running out, basically fear mongering. And so I remembered that was one of the automated messages on the pool game. And so they would put an avatar alluding to death, right? And then say the clock is ticking. And so for me, I didn't actually think the clock was ticking. I realized that they were just trying to get under my skin. And so I was to myself just thinking, oh my God, these people are so wicked. You're actually now throwing death at me. How could you wish death upon me after all these things you already did to me is how I felt, right? And then now you're sending stimuli to me on my pool game about death. And then when these messages would happen, so when they would play against me with the death avatar, then I would hear noise in the hallway, like somebody slammed the door, or I'd hear laughing outside, something like that. You know, the external noise campaign to solidify or to help pound in the programming. Remember, they're programming you. So every time they're sending you these subliminal messages via your YouTube, you know, the videos where they present stimuli, via your games like pool, where they're playing against you with stimuli and presenting certain messages 24/7, because 24/7 it's being done. Obviously, you're not going to sit there twiddling your thumbs being stared at. You're going to want to do something, right? So eventually you're going to go on your phone and you're going to look at a video or you're going to play a game. They use their shadow networking software to hack everything and send you stimuli 24/7. So it's a 24/7 programming assault. So they're programming your brain with whatever stimuli they're trying to sensitize you to. So they're sending me this bullshit 24/7. And then the noise campaign, the external noise is outside to solidify what's going on. So you can recognize the stimuli. So you can't miss it. Like even if they present stimuli and it happens subconsciously, like maybe you don't notice it like overtly, right? You don't notice it, but maybe subconsciously it's programming you. They make sure to make noise in the background so you notice it overtly. You're like, oh, wait a minute, they made noise. What is it? And you look good and you realize, oh shit, that's stimuli. Like they're programming you. So that's what they started doing with the death thing and just sending me stuff about death, even on YouTube, you know, like videos alluding to time running out and death and the pool game, just really morbid, wicked stuff. And so I remember getting really mad around that time and just like really popping off the mouth and saying, these people wicked, how could they wish death on me? How could they do this? How could they do that? And around that time, I hadn't even started the music yet. I hadn't even, mind you, again, let me tell you how this makes no sense. This music, this sellout thing, right? If it was because I sold out, don't you think that I would have started doing the music again 3 years ago when the targeting first started? Why would I start 3 years later? It doesn't even make sense what they're trying to portray. It makes no sense. So anyways, all of a sudden, while I'm doing the coding thing and they're doing this to me and antagonizing me 24/7, I remember one night again, they were doing it, sending me the death thing. I think they had sent me the rest in peace dove, if I'm not mistaken. I remembered yelling, these people so wicked. I said I would never wish death on them. I said, how could they wish death on me? And then I threw my hand up in the mark of the beast symbol. Now, mind you, they've been watching me on camera and I'm getting awkward because of the hand thing. Every time I talk about it, it just makes me so freaking angst. Anyways, they've been watching me on camera for about 2 years now. 3 years. When did it start? Shit, it was probably happening way before I realized it was happening. But I've been targeted since 2020. So summer of 2020 was when my targeting started. The cameras, I don't believe, got involved until 2021. At least that's when I recognized it, when I got my apartment. And that was when I realized I was being watched on camera. And I still had yet to learn that they were using insect drones. I just knew somehow they were surveilling me. There were cameras in my apartment that I couldn't find. I ordered one set of camera finder, you know, all these different devices that you're supposed to be able to use to find hidden cameras, infrared light, this and that. I could not find these damn cameras. And I'm sure they were having a sweet laugh at me too, watching me like an ass, trying to find these flying cameras, because I didn't know that it was flying insect drones. There's so much stuff that I learned after coming back to Island that had I known before, I could have prevented so many things that happened to me. But I didn't learn until, you know, all this bullshit happened to me. And this is partially why I'm so adamant about putting these videos out, because I want to help other innocent targets that are going through what I'm going through, to stop them from making some of the mistakes I made, and to save them some heartache and grief so they can help and protect themselves early and know what's going on. So anyways, I didn't know that it was flying cameras. I just knew I was being watched on camera and I couldn't find the camera. I didn't know how they were doing it. I was like, how are they doing this? And eventually I got so frustrated that I turned in my 30-day notice and left the apartment. But that was around the time I realized I was being watched on camera, 2021. So they've been watching me. We're in 2023 now, right? All the way to this point now. We're in November of 2023. They've been watching me for about 2 to 3 years at this point, right? It's been about 2 years of them watching me on camera. They never saw me do that symbol with my hand. Not once. Never saw me do that. All of a sudden, I try to relocate off island, right? I sit in my car in Florida. I share the offensive stuff I shared that got the attention of some powerful people, where I shared the offensive stuff about the Jewish community. And mind you, you can do your research. This is not something that I'm saying that's fodder. This is not my subjective opinion. This is fact. Jewish people, and I'm not saying this to offend them. I don't mean any disrespect by this. This is fact. Jewish people own most of America. They own most of the major corporations in America. They own CBS, CNN, all of those major news outlets. They own all of those things. So when it comes to the shadow networking technology, they're in control of all of that. I pissed off I pissed off the Jewish people. I pissed off that community. I came for a lot of different communities, not just Jewish people. I came for Caucasian people. Those are the two main communities I came for the most. Jewish people and Caucasian people. Those are the two main communities I came for. But I pissed off everyone. I came for Christians. I came for Asians. I came for just about everyone because I was just reacting and lashing out of anger because of what happened to me. But then also too, you have to understand I mainly targeted out, and not to use that word, but I honed in on Caucasian people and Jewish people because of what I experienced in Indiana. The Jewish people had nothing to do with what was going on in Indiana, but the Caucasian lash out happened because of what I experienced in Indiana. And I talked about that in several of my videos, what happened. You know, I believe what happened on the Greyhound bus made my targeting really bad. Not believe, I know it made my targeting really bad in Indiana. And so the targeting started to turn racially charged because I already had all of these people listening in. Once I did that thing on the bus with the homeless man, and that was a reaction as well, guys. Listen to my story. You know, there was this weird guy that walked by me in the Greyhound station prior to me getting on the Greyhound bus with the birds chirping. He watched me basically like a predator. And so when I got on the bus, at that point, I realized the thing had followed me and I felt like everyone was involved. I was paranoid. And then when I went to sit in my seat, the guy I went to sit next to kind of scooted over and did this face. So I just felt like everyone was involved and everyone was watching me. And I reacted out of that feeling. And that's why I moved the way that I did with that homeless man. But that's what made my targeting, that was the initial thing that made my targeting go viral. And so that's what was causing the craziness in Indiana. It wasn't racial initially. It was literally just vigilante punishment because they felt like I was somebody that abused homeless people, in addition to whatever the hell they heard about the text. But they were more so focused on the homeless man than the texting, just so you know. The texting didn't really become stimuli for me until I got down to Florida. So in Indiana, it was mainly about the homeless man and race. And why it turned into a race thing was because while I'm there, obviously all these people are now honed in on me because my thing went viral because of what happened with the homeless man. So I believe they were sending out that video of me, whatever recording it is that they were using, to mass amounts of people. And basically everyone in Indiana, anywhere in the vicinity of wherever I went, was involved in my targeting. But what made it turn racial was because the people in my close circle kept calling me and warning me about Indiana and warning me that it's a sundown state and there's a lot of racists out there and it's a predominantly white state and things of that nature. And you don't want to be hanging from a tree and things like that they were saying to me on the phone. And my car is bugged. So I'm like, oh my God, I kept trying to shush them up as a matter of fact, because while they were saying these things, I would be hearing the Rev campaign outside. And again, I didn't know what Rev campaign was. I didn't know what any of these what these terms were at the time. I didn't even know I was a target. I just knew somehow some weird thing was happening where all these people were stalking me. I knew my car was bugged. I didn't know about the flying mosquito drones. I just knew somehow they had my rental bugged and they were seeing and hearing everything I was saying. And I realized that they would rev by. I didn't know it was called Rev campaign, but I realized that they would rev by every time certain things were said. And so I noticed whenever these racial things were said in my car, the rev would be happening. It would happen like crazy. And so after a while, the targeting not only turned from them just presenting stimuli about people helping homeless people or cigarettes, it started to turn racially charged. My targeting, every time I tell the truth and I'm making sense, they start to rain super hard with the HAARP to shut me up. It's like, because I make sense, because I'm making sense. That's literally what it is, because I'm able to defend myself and articulate. That's what the problem is. Anyway, so that's why it started getting racially charged in Indiana, my targeting. That's what made it turn racial, because it wasn't racial initially. I believe it was just straight up vigilante punishment because they thought I was somebody that mistreated homeless people. It wasn't racial initially. It turned that way because of the conversations that was happening in my car. So I think they took those conversations in addition to what they saw, how they saw me treat that homeless man. And I think they just assumed that I was this prejudiced, mean bitch that mistreated homeless people and just mistreated races, different races, people of different races. I think this is what they started to assume, or came from a prejudiced family, whatever. And so they started to present racial stimuli to me Then I had the moment with the police officer where he started screaming at me as soon as he pulled me over. Off rip, he was screaming at me, and all I had done was run a stop sign. And it wasn't even a run like that. It wasn't like I ran straight through it. I did a rolling stop. So, like where you kind of stop at a stop sign, but you don't fully stop and then you keep going? That was what it was, except it wasn't a stop sign. What it was a light. And that's why it confused me. It was like those blinking lights that you see in the road. It's not like a stoplight. It looks like a stoplight, but it's serving as a stop sign. And it was just blinking nonstop, and there were no cars around. And it was blinking. It wasn't turning any other color but red. It was just blinking. So what it serves as is a stop sign. So you're supposed to stop fully and then drive through. And so what I did was I stopped and then I drove through. It was like I didn't come to a complete stop. I stopped briefly without stopping the vehicle completely, and then I went through. It's called a rolling stop. And that's what I did, a rolling stop. And so that's why that officer followed me, but I believe he was watching me anyway, because I was in his town. It was a small town. When I was getting targeted in Stockton, Indiana, I was literally state hopping. So I kept driving from state to state. I was driving between Indiana, Ohio, and Chicago. And while I was driving through Indiana, I would stop into the little town sometimes to get snacks or gas or whatever. And this is also why the people in my close circle kept telling me about sundown state and, certain towns you can't be driving in at certain hours, and they were giving me warnings. And so I believe obviously he must have heard the conversations, because everybody in the vicinity seemed to have been tapped into my vehicle. And so I think that's why he came after me, because it wasn't that serious what I did, a rolling stop. I can understand him pulling me over for it, but I don't think he ordinarily would have chased me the way he did, right? Because I had already reached the highway. I had left the town and I was on the highway, right on the road for the highway. And he sped out after me and went boop, boop, and so that's what startled me, the way he pulled up on me. And so I didn't even know what was going on. And I don't think he would have done that ordinarily had I not been targeted and had he not known about me. I don't think that would have happened. So anyways, as he came out his car, he was screaming at me immediately off rip, screaming at the top of his lungs, like on 10 already. And so that's what freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, all these people are already stalking me. They don't like me. They think that I abuse homeless people. They think that I come from a prejudiced family. And now this cop is pulling me over in his little small town, and I'm already feeling paranoid now because of the stuff that was being pounded in my head about sundown state and hanging from a tree, and so he came out his car screaming at me. And I was like, even if he's not racist, because this is not what I was thinking, I was more so thinking he probably hates me like everyone else because of whatever. That's more so what my fear was. I was like, oh my God, this man is pulling me over. He's screaming at me immediately. He hasn't even, gotten a chance to talk to me. I haven't even got my window all the way down and he's screaming. He's like, where did you learn how to drive? He's like, you Florida people don't know how to drive. He's like, get to the side of the road. Because I got so freaking bassity. And I've told y'all this in prior videos. Bassity is just Trini terminology. It's from the Trinidad culture. And it just means flustered, like you got flustered, right? I got flustered because of the way he pulled up on me, and I was already on edge. You have to understand, I was like an anxious person behind my steering wheel because I was being stalked by droves and droves of people and all this weird, crazy stuff was happening. So I was constantly on edge. And so when he pulled up on me, I was already on edge anyway. And so he pulled up on me and he came out his car and he's screaming. And so I was flustered, and also to the way he pulled up on me and the way he was beep, beep, I was like, oh my God, I got scared. And I literally just stopped right where I was. So instead of pulling over to the side of the road like how you're supposed to when you get pulled over, I pulled over halfway. So I came off halfway instead of coming completely off the road because I was so freaking flustered. And so he opened his door and he started screaming at me. He's like, where did you Florida people learn how to drive? What are you doing? He's like, get to the side of the road. Like screaming. I'm telling you, this man was screaming to the top of his lungs. And that's why I was terrified. And so I moved more over off of the road, and immediately I called the people in my close circle. And I'm telling them, look, this officer just pulled me over. He's on top of the back of my car. He's screaming at me at the top of his lungs. I said, I'm scared. I said, I'm going to start recording him because I knew I was using my brain at that point. I knew that my car was tapped. And I knew at this point that he probably was holding a grudge against me like everyone else that was targeting me and stalking me. And so I did not want to become another statistic. And I wasn't thinking about it in that way, in a race way. They made it that. I was more so thinking of it in a way like you think I'm a bad person, so you might pop me off. That's what I was thinking. And I was already dealing with all these people stalking me. So I immediately called the people in my close circle and I started telling them what was going on. And I was just telling them basically that I was going to record him. I was like, I'm going to record him. I said, there's this officer on me. I said, I'm scared. He's screaming at me. I said, I'm going to record him. And I was saying it because I knew he could hear me. I knew at this point my car was bugged. And so I was right. When he came out the car, his whole demeanor had changed. His face, the mean mug he had on changed. He had this sweet demeanor on. His voice changed. His tone changed. He even started telling me, get where I'm going safe. But after that, that was what made my targeting go even more higher. So the kind of viral it went after the homeless man was where they were just spreading out, I guess, the video footage of me and the information about my targeting to all of the people in the vicinity around me, so that all the civilians would get involved in my targeting. But after the incident with the police officer, that's where it went higher up. And that's where I started seeing police cars, droves and droves of police cars stalking me. I wasn't seeing them before. I started seeing fire trucks. I started seeing helicopters, like America's Most Wanted, like I committed some crime, never committed a crime in my life, all of this shit for me. Helicopters, sometimes two at a time in the sky, right? This is the type of stuff that started happening. But not only that, the police officer interaction started turning racially charged. And I believe it was because of the conversations I was having in my car, in addition to the fact that I said I was going to record that officer. When I literally just said that to protect myself because he was acting irate and I had been being stalked on the road for days by different people. And I wasn't sure what he might do to me. So that's why I did that, for my own protection. They took that and they used that to propel my targeting. All of the emergency vehicles got involved. And that was when my targeting got even more elevated. And so it got racially charged. And so they started doing like these fake arrests at the inns that I would be staying at. And it would always be like racially charged. It would always be like a white officer arresting a black civilian. They even did this horrible street skit. I talked about this in several of my prior videos, where this white officer was arresting this black girl. And she's looking at me while she's screaming, I do it for Mike Brown. I do it for Eric Garner, all the black people that got killed by cops. She's yelling that and staring at me with this like puppy dog expression. I don't know if they thought, it's almost like when they do the theater, it's to taunt you, but it's almost also like they're trying to see what your reaction is going to be to certain stimuli. So I think they wanted to see if I would pull out my phone and start recording and making a big deal and act like the pro-black girl that's against the white officers, which I'm not. And I never have been. So I just thought it was ridiculous. And I looked at them and I started laughing. I thought it was hilarious and ridiculous. And they kept doing that, so this is where I started to feel like a resentment, you can almost say, because they started to present this racial stimuli to me constantly in Indiana. And then my life was even in jeopardy one night. It was one morning, actually. It was still night out, but it was morning. It was the wee hours of the morning. It was like 4 a.m. And I was scared to stay in the inns because of what was happening with the street theater and them being on top of me. This one night, I had a lot of nights like this where I would drive around all night long. And then during the daytime, I would go to the inn because I felt safer doing that. And so I remember this one morning, for some reason, 2 people in my close circle were up. And so I was able to have them on the phone with me. I called them and they actually picked up. And it was like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm on the phone with them, talking to them while I'm just driving up and down in Indiana. Don't even know where the hell I'm going, just driving up and down. At this point, I probably covered every freaking square inch of Indiana with all the driving that I did. And that's also how the money that I had saved to relocate got dwindled away. It dwindled away in gas and junk food, which was not my plan. Anyway, so, and I'm sorry I'm having to yell, guys. They're really, I think, doing the HAARP. I don't want to bear false witness. But as soon as I started making sense and telling my story, that's what happens. They up the ante with the physical. I don't want to bear false witness and say that that's what it is. But that's what it seems like, because all of a sudden it started raining really hard to the point where I'm having to scream to do this video. So anyways, so that morning I remember that I ended up on this back road by accident. I was actually on like this highway, in Indiana. It was like this highway. And I think I was headed, if I'm not mistaken, to Chicago. And so I was on this highway and somehow I ended up on this back road that was still a highway, but it was like a back road highway. And there was like a cornfield on the left-hand side. And there was like this median in the middle of the road. It was a low median, so you could drive over it. But only if you had a higher car. Thank goodness I had an SUV that I was driving. Had I been in a lower car, I would have been screwed. Anyway, so I was driving behind this tow truck. And I was driving behind this tow truck. And behind me was this big black truck with its high beams on. And so I remember that I was driving behind the tow truck. And the truck behind me with the big black beams on not black, with the big high beams on, kept driving like up on top of me. It's called brighting. That's a technique that they use on targets. It's called brighting. And so I hadn't really experienced that tactic until just then, right? So I was like, why is he driving on top of me with these big high beams? So I knew it was some sort of, I didn't know I was a target. I knew this weird thing was happening where I was being stalked by all these people, but I didn't know what the terms were. So I just said, I know this is one of these stalkers harassing me. I'm like, why is he driving on me with this big bright light at this hour in the morning? It was like 3 or 4 and I'm on this back road. So I started feeling nervous. And then I noticed while he's driving behind me, I tried to kind of speed up and get away from him. And I ended up behind this tow truck. It wasn't even a tow truck. I keep saying that, not a tow truck. You know those big trucks, those CDL trucks? You know how you can take the front part off of the trailer? You can take the trailer or the load off of the front part? That's what it was. It was literally just the front part. And that front part was towing another front part. So it was like 2 front parts in front of me. And one of the front parts was towing another front part. That's why I keep saying tow truck. It wasn't a tow truck, but one of the front parts of the CDL truck was towing another front part of another CDL truck. And so I remember them just slowly coming to a stop, and the whole road is blocked off. To the side is this kind of like grassy hill type thing where I couldn't drive around them. My only option would have been to drive over the median and go to the other side of the road. So they slowly, mind you, again, this is some sort of back road now. It's like a highway, but it's on like a back road with a cornfield on the left-hand side. They start slowly coming to a stop, and the guy behind with the big, bright, high beams drives right on top of my vehicle. And so I noticed like I'm starting to get nervous. I'm telling the people in my close circle on the phone what's going on too. I'm like, yo, this car stopped in front of me. I said, I don't know what's going on. I'm telling them play by play what's happening, right? So then the guy opens the door, right? He slowly comes out, and it was a Caucasian guy. Again, I'm not going to say it was racially charged, but I think it was. I think they were hearing the conversations in my car. And I think they were hearing the warnings about a predominantly white state and sundown state, and you don't want to be hanging from a tree. And so I think they maybe decided that they would actually make that a reality or something. I don't know. I don't want to bear false witness. I don't know what the intention was. But it was a Caucasian man that came out of the passenger side of the vehicle, and he had a crowbar in his hand. And so he starts walking to my vehicle slowly. He's walking slowly. First, he looked like he was going to fix something on the vehicle. And so I thought that's what was happening. But believe you me, I was ready to kick it into gear because I knew it was strange, and it was 4 a.m. at night, and I had been being stalked for days. So he creeps out of the car slowly and acts like he's about to fix something. And he starts power walking to my car fast, like looking straight at my car, power walking to my car. And his shirt was off, by the way. He had his shirt off and he had jean pants on. Why is your shirt off at that hour of the morning? And it was chilly too. This was around fall. Remember, I told y'all I left summertime, right? When I left was like July. I want to say July, August was when I left and tried to relocate to the States. And I was up there for a few months. I didn't come back until like November. So this was fall time. It was cold. It was getting cold. There was mist, fog, everything. It was getting cold. This is Indiana. So when he starts power walking to my car, I kicked the car into gear and I sped over the median. I said, fuck this rental. Excuse my language. But I said, this rental. I said, even if I have to drive on the freaking rims, gear, whatever it is, I'm going to get out of here. And so I sped over the median. And I was able to get on the other side of the road and I sped out of there. And thank God it didn't mess up the rental. I thought the rental was going to get jacked up. It didn't. But who knows what would have happened had I not been able to speed over that median. I don't know what they had planned for me, but I was able to get away by the grace of the Most High. But these are the things that I went through while I was up there. Racially charged things where my life was actually in jeopardy. So it wasn't just a joke thing. Sometimes it was a joke thing, like the street theater with the police officers in front of those things were harmless. Those things were more so just like, you're antagonizing me. You think it's funny. This is bullshit. But when it gets to the point where it's like wee hours of the morning and I'm on a back road and you're stopping up, blocking me in and you're coming out with a crowbar, I don't know what the plan was. But I hightailed it out of there. I was able to get away by the grace of the Most High. And so these are the things that I experienced that were racially charged in Indiana, among other things. There was a lot of other things that were presented to me. And again, I don't really blame the people. I think they just had a warped perception of me. They were hearing these conversations in my car, these racially charged conversations. They saw the footage of me mistreating an elderly homeless man who was coughing. It doesn't look good. I get it. So I understood the reaction I got from them, but it still didn't change how I felt because I knew what I had went through and why I reacted the way I did. And so for me, all I felt was anger. And so I got down to Florida and I sat in my car. I was trying to watch biblical videos just to save myself and protect myself spiritually. This is how I felt because I felt like witchcraft was on me. And they just kept antagonizing me down there. It wasn't even racially charged in Florida. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It was not racially charged in Florida at all. But I already had those pent up feelings about what I had dealt with in Indiana for about 2 months. 2 months of racially charged gang stalking. right? So I already had those pent up feelings. In addition to feeling like the people around me were being hypocritical, is how I felt in the moment. And this is why I came for Christians. This is why I came for Caucasian people. The Jewish people were, you could just say, collateral damage because of the knowledge that I had with the Hebrew Israelite understanding. There were certain ideologies I had learned that I never really gripped onto, and there were certain understandings that I did grip onto. And because I knew that offensive understanding, I did share and push that truth or understand. I wouldn't even say truth. I wouldn't call it a truth. Truth is subjective anyways. It's really just whatever your perception is. But I did share that understanding, and I was sharing offensive shit on purpose too after a while. You know, it wasn't straight up coming from a malicious place. It was also coming from a place like, well, this is what I know. This is what I've learned, and I want the Most High to protect me. But then also too, sharing stuff that I didn't even need to share, like fodder after a certain point, stuff that was just not even necessary, extra propaganda because I was angry. Just sharing extra stuff to offend people at a certain point because I was angry. And so that's what I started to do. I started sharing like offensive stuff about the Jewish people, controversial stuff about the eagle. That's why they keep sending me stimuli about the eagle. Controversial stuff about America, about Caucasian people, and definitely didn't hold on to that ideology. That's not even something that we gripped onto. That whole offensive shit I was sharing in my car about Caucasian people, I purposely was sharing the offensive because I was angry. And so what it did was it just created a really bad situation for me, and my targeting got way, way worse. Like it went way more viral. They all started wishing death on me at that point. I think they kind of were anyways because of the other stuff that was being projected onto me. But at that point, that's when it really got bad, was when I started sharing that offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda in my car. That was when my targeting, I think, went to the next level. Like I pissed off some powerful people, and that was when my targeting changed. It had already changed before I got to that moment where I shared that biblical stuff. It had already changed. It had already went more viral, but it changed to even more of a different level. Like I went higher up when I sat there and shared that controversial stuff about the Jewish community, about Caucasian people, Asian people, etc. That was when I started noticing, when I'm doing the DoorDash, I'm noticing people in military uniform standing with their legs spread apart, like they're about to face off with a terrorist or somebody that's coming to blow up. Let me not say that, but like coming to shoot up the place or whatever. Like this is the type of stuff that I was experiencing when I was doing DoorDash after sharing the propaganda, the Hebrew Israelite propaganda. So it wasn't just me seeing emergency vehicles and stuff. They literally had military men, posed up outside of the restaurants that I'm doing DoorDash at. I'm like, what the hell? I've never committed a crime in my life. I've never gotten in trouble in my life. I'm a good girl. And I'm at the point now where I'm being treated like America's most wanted. You have to understand what goes through your mind when something like that happens to you. And so I started really feeling like witchcraft was on me heavily. And this is why when I got back, I was heavily on this witchcraft stuff, which made things worse for me again. Made things way worse for me again. Anyway, so because I went off on a major tangent and I didn't mean to. I'm just like venting because, again, dealing with bullshit, man. I've been being positive these last few weeks, trying to stay out of trouble. I have a job pending. I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But it's like constantly you're dealing with the tactics that are used in the program when you're not doing anything. And it's so hard not to react, especially when the physical starts happening. When they start humming in your ear and you start feeling sick. Then you're like, oh my God, I need to start talking about this stuff. Anyway, so I went off on a tangent. I didn't mean to talk about that stuff again because I talked about all that stuff already. What I was talking about was a few months ago. So I was trying to do the coding. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to do the coding a few months ago. They kept sending taking the card and stuff, and I was cussing and getting mad. And then they started sending death threats to my pool game. They started to play against me with their shadow networking, with avatars alluding to death, and clicking on the automated message that said the clock is ticking, stuff like that. And so I got, what happened when they did that? After they said the clock is ticking, my God, I lost my train of thought. My mind went blank. That's crazy. So after they said that they started doing that, that's what happened. One night they did it again. So they kept doing it. And one night they did it again, and I got so mad. I said, these people are so wicked. I can't believe they would wish death on me. I would never wish death on them. And I threw my hand up in the mark of the beast symbol. That's what it is. That's why I went off on a tangent. And I could not explain why I did that. I could not explain why I did it. I just knew I was livid in the moment when it happened. I could not explain why I did it. They've been watching me on camera since 2021. I feel like I was framed through and through. And I keep saying I'm getting backlash for saying that, but I don't know what else to say. It feels like I was framed. So anyways, and they would say I'm bearing false witness, but they're running with the narrative of me doing that thing with my hand, and I can't explain why I did it. And the whole reason I did it was in reaction to the abuse I was receiving. I know what I'm saying makes sense, but they're still running with that. So I don't know what else to say, but it feels like I was framed. It does feel like that. So anyways, they never saw me do that symbol with my hand. You know, in 2021 was when I was aware of the cameras being on me. 2021 in my apartment, that was when I was aware of the fact that I was being watched on camera. Prior to that, I've been targeted since 2020, summer of 2020. They could have had the cameras on me since way before 2021, and I just wasn't aware of it. I have no idea. And if they did, that's perfectly fine because I never did anything. I have nothing to hide. So if they had the cameras on me prior to when I realized that it was on me, thank God. That means they saw that I wasn't doing anything. Guys, I think I'm hearing street theater. Hold on. Guys, there's somebody outside in the rain screaming at the top of their lungs, but I can't really hear what they're saying. Guys, so theater is happening outside, and that doesn't happen often. That's one thing that I haven't really experienced down here on this island. I've experienced theater in the way where like they'll have directed convo. So for instance, when I leave the house, somebody might come around me and have a conversation with stimuli in it. That's the most I've ever seen as far as theater goes down here. I have had the people in my family do fake fights like this morning. Y'all heard it at the beginning of the video. But I think now the people in the neighborhood are emulating what the people in my close circle were doing in the house. So they're purposely yelling now in the neighborhood because I made the comment that the cameras might have been on me before 2021. Now, understand this. My targeting started in 2020. Let me reiterate that. I moved back to this island in 2020. So if the cameras were on me a year prior to when I realized they were on me, that is perfectly fine. Thank Yahweh. Bahasham Hamashiach. Because that means they didn't see me doing shit. So I'm glad the cameras are on me. So they started screaming when I made that comment. But I'm glad if the cameras were on me before then, that means they didn't see me doing shit and they know I'm innocent. So that again doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, to my knowledge, like I said, before the street theater started, the cameras were on me in 2021. So if it was longer, even better. So that means since 2020, because they started screaming when I made that comment. So maybe as soon as I sent the text, they went and flew and sent the text out and the cameras were on me. Who knows? God only knows. And them, right? Let's say the cameras were on me since 2020. Even better. So that means the cameras were on me since 2020 and they never saw me do that symbol with my hand. So why now all of a sudden, because this is why I actually started talking about what happened in my car in Florida. Why now all of a sudden, you've been on me for 3 years, right? You've been watching me for 3 years. I try to relocate off island, right? To start over because I think it's some sort of spiteful thing they're doing and not realizing that I was thrown into some sort of program, right? I try to relocate off island. All these different things happen that makes my targeting go viral. I sit in my car in Florida. I share some extremely offensive content that gets me in trouble with the government, the higher ups. I really pissed off the higher ups now. So I'm really targeted now to a different level and extent to the point where they're using their shadow networking technology on me and their patents, right? Their patented technology. I'm microchipped. I've showed this in several of my videos, the capabilities of controlling you, your nervous system. They can control your body. They can put thoughts in your head with their technology. So that's odd. That's a real big coincidence. You mean to tell me you've been watching me for 3 years straight on camera? Because the noise campaign for me tells me or indicates to me that maybe they were watching me way before I got the apartment in 2021. So thank God. So that means you've been watching me for 3 years. You never saw me do the thing with my hand, right? All of a sudden I leave. I try to relocate off island. I sit in Florida and I share the offensive Hebrew Israelite propaganda I share, right? I offend some powerful people. I come back to island. I get microchipped. They're now using their neuromonitoring technology on me. A few months prior to doing the symbol with my hand, I have a strange dream. Mind you, I've provided in several videos that they can control your dreams, right? I provided documents and patents showing you that they have the technology to control your dreams and your body. I have that strange dream all of a sudden when I relocate. Why now? Why is the timing now? You've been watching me for 3 years on camera. Why all of a sudden when I relocate, piss off all those people in the States, and I come back and I get microchip, all of a sudden now all these different things to frame me is happening? Why all of a sudden now I have that dream where this man is doing that symbol with his hand and I wake up with my ear ringing, which is a key symbol, right? That they're using the technology on you. And then a month later, after being antagonized, I randomly throw my hand up in that symbol and I can't explain it. Why now? After I came back and got microchipped. Let's put two and two together. They just want me to be guilty. Again, it's about me offending people. That's what this is about. It's not about right or wrong at this point. They're holding a grudge and they want me to be guilty because they don't like me. That's the facts. So that's what's going on right now. So let me show y'all something. And I don't need to because I've already shown this in several of my videos. But let's do that. Let me show y'all something. And I don't have to show y'all this because I've shown y'all this in several videos, right? But I'm going to show y'all it again. Sorry, guys, that's a hairstyle I want to get. Clicked on the wrong picture. So this is a Google patent, right? And I showed you the other patent too. This is the same patent, but Google Patents have uploaded it. And then Michael Barden has it uploaded on his page, right? I'll show you that as well, right? This is in Google Patents, guys. It says patent US 6506148, nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. So they're able to use the brain to computer interface, because that's what they mean by from monitors. They're doing a computer to brain interface. So once they microchip you, they hook you up to a computer system, and via their computer monitor, they can control your body if they want to. They can push thoughts in your head if they want to. They can beam a voice. It's called V2K in your head if they want to. They can see everything you see. They can hear everything you hear. They can literally manipulate your mind if they want to. They can send you vivid dreams with this patented technology if they want to. So why now? After I left, right? I tried to relocate. Again, this is why the sellout thing doesn't make sense too. Why would I try to relocate and leave if I were trying to sell out? Why wouldn't I be in the radio station from jump making videos and doing music? Why would I have stopped doing the music? First of all, I started doing it. And again, it's not music. It's poetry over a beat. That's what it is. It's not music. Why would I have randomly started doing that? I didn't come for the opportunity. I didn't ask for it. My brother-in-law randomly came to my sister and I while we were in the Hebrew Israelite church and told us that he was going to be recording with some Hebrew brothers coming from up north. And he asked us, do we want to come to the studio with him? So we said, sure. I had some poems written because I always have poems on deck. I've been writing poetry my whole life, and I showed y'all that. I even showed y'all that random poem that I found by accident when I was looking for receipts and evidence to corroborate what I was saying about the cyber stalking and cyberbullying situation that I also got gaslit about just because people don't like me, right? I was looking for evidence about that with the Kadan email, and accidentally, that was the grace of the Most High, I found that poem that I wrote in 2018. That was before I ever started recording. 2018, I wrote that poem. Same writing style, using homophones. I used a double entendre. Same writing style. Never put that to a beat because I hadn't started recording yet. I just emailed it to myself. That's what I do. I write poems, I email it to myself, I stuff it in a corner, I have it in books. I've been writing poetry. So I emailed that poem to myself. I think I was sitting in my class when I wrote it and I was thinking about my ex. And I emailed it to myself and I found that poem by accident. So the recording thing started by fluke. I've been writing poems way before I ever started recording. And just so you know, my brother-in-law is the one who likes to record. Even in Tallahassee, when we were in our early 20s, with that same dude that I was telling y'all the story about why I felt like the roommate might have been envious about me. That same dude that I had kind of briefly talked to and then I didn't like him like that. And when she came up, she kind of liked him. He was into rapping and music and he knew I was into rapping too. That was one of the things we had in common. And so I remember him and my brother-in-law used to go to the studio and record. And I remember going there one time by them and I was too nervous to record. I never recorded. I was always too nervous. I just don't have that type of personality. But I did share some of my raps with that guy. So all the way back then I was writing poetry and my brother-in-law was recording and I didn't care to do it. So then years later now, when I went back to school for the second time and my younger sister's up there with me, she does a little singing thing to the side. I do my poetry. I can freestyle rap. He asked us if we want to come to the studio with him randomly. This wasn't something I was looking for. I could see if they saw me years ago, right? That same time frame, right? When the recordings happened. I could see if it was something that I pursued. Like they saw me randomly hitting up big artists and hopping in the studio with them and getting through. And they said I tried to sell out. I was literally given the opportunity by my brother-in-law who was in the Hebrew church. And I did a few recordings, and one of them was about Yahweh. And then I stopped. I had people reaching out to me because they liked my sound or they liked my lyrics, whatever it is that they liked. And I didn't care about that shit. I was focused on school, and I was focused on the 3 hard jobs that I was working at that time. And that's what I was focused on. So I put the music thing to the back burner, and I didn't really look twice at it again. I even deleted my band lab, not deleted, excuse me. I even put my band lab to the back burner. I wasn't studying it. I didn't care about that stuff. It was a hobby. It was like a little discovery for me. I already knew I was a good writer. Not to sound cocky or like a narcissist. You know when you're good at something. I already knew I was a good writer, but I never knew that I would sound so good on record. I didn't, because I never tried to record myself. So when it sounded good, it was just more so like a nice discovery that you discover about yourself. I was like, okay, cool. Whoa. Okay, I sound good. Nice. Okay, next. I didn't care. I moved on from it. I wasn't focused on it. I even remember my mom kind of trying to push my poems a little bit on Facebook back then. She like shared like 1 or 2 of my poems, and my sister did too, because they liked my poems. And that was it. That was it. I didn't care about that shit. So why now, years later, all of a sudden, all this shit is happening to me to the point where I even tried to relocate and leave because of what was happening. I piss off all these people in my car in Florida. I come back. I try to make something of myself, salvage what I can of my life. I'm focused on coding, not music. You're sabotaging that. You're taking the current, right? Doing all of these different covert harassment techniques. And then when I got mad about the pool game and I threw my hand up in that symbol, I didn't even throw my hand up in that symbol while I was doing the music. I wasn't even doing the music yet. I threw my hand up in that symbol while I was doing the coding. And if that symbol was indicative of me selling out or having knowledge or whatever lies they're trying to say, don't you think I would have been a whiz at the coding? Don't you think I would have done the back end coding instead of the front end? I went for the front end coding because I suck at math. I always have. That's the one thing I'm not good at. And so I went for the front end coding because I felt like I could teach myself that. And it was taking me a while to learn JavaScript. I was literally having to participate in programs and create projects alongside instructors so that I could start learning the JavaScript because I was having kind of a hard time with it. If that symbol is indicative of me selling out or getting knowledge, don't you think I would have been a whiz at the coding? Don't you think my portfolio would have been up and I would have been done working a coding job? Don't you think I would have been like having money and all this type of stuff? It doesn't even make sense if I sold out. Where's the money? Where is the accolades if I sold out? It doesn't even make sense. The lie bullshit they're trying to portray. It doesn't make sense. It's bullshit. So anyways, with the music thing, after I did the symbol with my hand, excuse me, after I did the symbol with my hand with the coding, that's when they started to up the ante with the nano. I was already microchipped since December. So prior to the beginning of this year, December of last year was when I believe I got microchipped. That was when I got the initial sting, and I keep saying this in all my videos, from the mosquito drone, and it felt like a needle prick on my finger. And then I started to notice like this crawling feeling in my back and stuff. So that's when I believe I was microchipped, December of last year, not even the beginning of this year. But they started to up the ante and like bite me in my neck and do weird, creepy stuff like that after I did that symbol with my hand in reaction to the abuse that was happening to me. And again, I don't even know why I did that symbol. I just know I was angry, and they can control your emotions too. Let me show y'all something else. Because they can control your nervous system, which obviously coincides with your emotions, right? They can control your psyche with this technology. Where's that picture? Where is it? Here. This technology exists. They don't have these screenshots for no reason. Implants, PX67, activate, paranoia, fear, pain, confusion, nausea, memory, panic, sleep, attack, lethargy. I don't even want to say that. But yeah, they can control your emotions with this technology. Lethargy, excuse me. Let me show y'all something else, because I showed y'all the patent, the Google patent for it. I don't need to do this. I don't need to show y'all all of this because I've already done this in several videos, and I know what I'm saying makes sense. They're just purposely pushing lies and false narratives to malign me. Where is it? Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please check out my How I Became a Targeted Individual summary and or How I Became a Targeted Individual full story. This is not going to be a long video, guys. I literally just got on TikTok. I'm considering possibly posting content on there. I'm not sure yet. Right now I'm sticking to YouTube. But I did hear that a lot of targets are on TikTok. So I went over there just to explore. And of course I looked at Michael Barden. You know, I'm a big fan of his. And I found that he had a recent video where he showed the patents for the mind control technology that is used on targets. So if you've checked out my prior videos, let me go there really quickly. You'll see that in the thought manipulation documentation video. I believe in that one. No, it wasn't that one. It was this one. The targeted individuals are victims of mind control. And you see the thumbnail that says Mind Control MK Ultra. And that one I shared a clip of Michael Barden's video where he's talking about this technology that they have patents for, where they can literally push thoughts into your brain, and voices if they want it. It's scary. But then also there was another video I shared it in. I think in this RFID and nanobots injected into targets video, I believe in this video as well, I shared the clip of Michael Barden's video where he's talking about the patented technology used on targets. Well, now he actually has a screenshot of the patent. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. It's on his TikTok. So this is his TikTok. Go ahead and follow.
Synthetic telepathy. Thoughts that are put into an individual's head without their consent. That's crazy. Who would do that? Well, we can start with DARPA, HAARP, National Institute of Health.
Guys, let me just stop on this diagram real quick. Now I have this posted on my page as well. Hold on. Talk.
Into an individual's head without their consent. That's crazy. Who would do that? Well, we can start.
Now, guys, I have the same diagram posted on my page, and I'm sure you've seen it already, right? Look at what it says. It says, vivid controlled dreams. Vivid controlled dreams. And even in my part 3, gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual, I provided a document from a gentleman in India that was talking about this same technology that they have where they can actually download, because remember, you're microchipped, you're connected to a computer system. So at this point now, your brain is like a computer. They can download dreams into your brain, and they can download different shit into your brain with their technology. But this is actually from DARPA. This diagram was released at a freedom of speech conference, and it's from DARPA, and it shows you what their technology can do. So vivid dreams. So again, remember what I told y'all, the dream that I had a month prior to doing the symbol with my hand. Randomly, never had a dream like that before. Now all of a sudden I come back to Island after my targeting going viral, me pissing off a bunch of powerful people, and I'm sending a bunch of shadow networking, lie, social engineering, false narratives all of a sudden. That wasn't happening before I left. All of a sudden that's happening to me, right? I start having these weird dreams when I get back. I'm microchipped now, mind you, against my consent. I didn't consent to this bullshit, right? So anyways, also, not only vivid controlled dreams, but also, artificial tinnitus, ringing in the ears. So when they're doing their technology, it makes your ears ring. Thank the Most High I told my mom about that dream. When I had it, I told her about that weird dream that I had and the fact that I woke up with my ear ringing. So that was them. And then a month later, all of a sudden they get me so angry, they're antagonizing me day in, day out, and sending me death threats. And then I do that symbol randomly with my hand, and I never did it before. And then they try to run with it and frame me and make it like it has something to do with my music, when I wasn't even doing my music yet at that point. It doesn't even make sense. If anything, if I were doing that symbol for some sort of spiritually wicked thing, it would be tied to the coding, because that's what I was doing at that point. And if that were the case, I would have been a whiz at coding, and I would have been able to do the back-end coding too. That resembles math that I was bad at. So I chose to do the front-end coding. And I was teaching myself JavaScript and struggling with it. But I was able to teach myself. I'm still learning. And actually, I kind of just put that to the back burner because they successfully got me to let go of what I was doing there. Anything productive that you're doing, they can successfully stop you from doing it and stop you from prospering. So anyways, after that, after they started sabotaging everything, That was when I laid on my bed and I didn't know what to do with myself because they were staring at me and taking the current every 5 seconds. And at that point, my body had started getting sick because they upped the ante with the nano after I did that symbol with my hand. So I was already microchipped, but they started to make me get physically sick. I think they were also, I suspect, I don't want to bear false witness, I think at that point had also started hitting me with energy weapons because they started to, with their shadow networking technology, send me subliminal videos hinting to radiation poisoning. And I started getting black smudges under my eyes. I started losing weight. I started feeling sick and weak. I was throwing up like a cancer patient that's getting radiation, wicked stuff, that's getting radiation therapy. That's what it felt like they were doing to me. And I got really skinny and sickly. So I really just totally let go of the coding. I stopped doing it completely. I was like, okay, it seems to be pissing them off that I'm doing something productive. Let me lay on the bed and not do anything. Maybe they won't kill me. That's how I felt. So that's what was happening, right? So I laid there and I was laying there staring at the roof. And at that point, I lost faith. And that was when I downloaded the witchcraft book. It was after that happened to me. That was where I downloaded the witchcraft book and I said, nah, I'm not about to die in this. And I said, I'm going to do a return to sender. This was what my mindset was. I was like, something is on me and I need to get it off of me. Nobody's listening. It's to the point where they're now trying to, it felt like, kill me. And I said, I'm going to do a return to sender and I'm going to defend myself. And so that's how I felt, because I felt like I was praying and it felt like the most I wasn't hearing me, which is ignorant and stupid. I wasn't having faith. But I'm like, oh my God, it's to the point now where they're like, it feels like they're trying to kill me. I'm like, no way. I said, I'm going to do a return to sender is how I felt. And so I downloaded the return to sender book, read the book, got freaked out and deleted it. Never did nothing in that book. Didn't write down none of the rituals, didn't screenshot it, nothing like that. Read the shit, got freaked out, deleted it. I listened to a frequency around that time. So I'm just telling you everything that I actually did do. This was all in the same time frame, around when the nano was amped up in my body and I started fearing for my life. I started doing things out of fear. So then I also started looking into astrology. And I looked into my birth chart, trying to figure out if I could find answers for why this was happening to me. And I didn't just straight up think to do that either. It wasn't like I was like, okay, this is happening, I'm going to look into astrology. That wasn't the case. I was literally just looking through Target's pages for help. And I ended up on Michelle Angelique's page because she was teaching about how to make the anti-nano bucket. And I came across a video with her and her boyfriend, her friend, whatever he was to her. And they were talking about the fact that he reads birth charts. And he was able to read in her birth chart why she became targeted. And so that caught my attention, of course, in my desperate state, and I'm looking for answers. That caught my attention. I started looking into my birth chart. So that was the second thing I did. And the third thing I did was listen to a frequency. Not something that I looked up. It's not like I went and searched up frequencies that can make you quantum jump. I didn't type that shit in. Again, with their shadow networking and trying to set me up, they dropped that shit in my news feed. And at that time, I was looking at a lot of astrology videos anyway, and the shit popped up in my news feed, and it said quantum jumping, and it said frequency that can, I forgot what the stupid thing said, something about quantum jumping. And from the time you see quantum, you know it's them, because apparently with this technology, what they're using is quantum frequencies. So I think that was all technology they were doing on me, and probably trying to see how that frequency would interact with my microchip. That's what I think. But anyways, I didn't know that. I hadn't learned all of the information I know now back then. I was just in a desperate state and I felt like my life was in jeopardy. And I couldn't understand how I got to this point from sending a text message, an innocent text. And so I was sitting there just like, I'm going to do what I have to do to clear whatever this is off of me. And so I didn't do the witchcraft thing. I read it. I deleted the book. I looked into astrology. I looked into my birth chart and found some cryptic message about my birth chart, about some Saturn return that was supposed to be happening around the time when my targeting started, and some some serious life lesson that I was supposed to learn. And if I didn't learn the lesson in time, I would be in darkness forever. Some weird, creepy ass message that I ended up finding when I looked into my birth chart. And then the third thing was listening to that frequency that they threw in my news feed with their shadow networking, probably trying to experiment on me. And I listened to that frequency, fell asleep listening to it, and basically woke up with my eyes rolling up in my head. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I probably listened to about 5 minutes of it, and it already knocked me out, hypnotized me, whatever it was doing to me. And I passed out and I woke up with my eyes rolling up in my head. I took it off and I said my prayers. Those are the three things that I did do. There was nothing else that I did spiritually. The thing with my hand happened before those things. And the thing that I did with my hand was what caused them to up the ante with the nano. And I think it was framing. I think they did that so that they could have a reason. I'm sorry, I don't want to bear false witness, but that's what it feels like. I think they didn't like me as a person. I think the U.S. government made to put a hit out on me because of the stuff I was showing in my car in Florida. And I think they did that to frame me, right? Got me to do that thing with my hand, was able to push whatever narrative and started trying to take me out. And by the grace of God, I was saved. And that's what I think happened. Anyway, so in my desperation around that time after doing the symbol with my hand and then them making me sick, or I suspect they were making me sick. I'm not going to bear false witness, but I was physically getting sick and I had all of the symptoms of radiation poisoning, and subliminally they were sending me messages like that in my YouTube. After that started happening was when I started to lose faith, and I was like, nah, something's on me and I'm gonna get it off me. And so that was when I started doing, I downloaded the witchcraft book. I read the whole thing, deleted it. And then I also looked into astrology because of what I saw on the Target Michelle Angelique or Angelics page. And I started looking into my birth chart, and I got that cryptic message about some lesson that I was supposed to learn or I would be in darkness forever. And then the third thing I did was listen to that frequency. And I had no bad intentions when I listened to it, but I was just desperate. And it was saying something about quantum jumping and living the life you really want to live, and some stupid shit like that, man. And so I sat there and I was like, okay, well, it doesn't hurt to listen to a meditation. Anything will help at this point. And so I laid down listening to the damn meditation and just kind of following what they were telling me to do and envisioning the life I wanted. And I started envisioning the life that I should be living right now after graduation. And I envisioned the life that I thought I would be living right now, working a successful career, being married, having kids, just regular stuff that a regular woman would want. And I was just envisioning that in my head. And then I don't know when it happened, I just blacked out. And when I woke up, my eyes were rolling up in my head and I was going, like I literally sat up. It's not even like I sat up of my own will. It's like I felt my body sitting up and my neck like doing this, and my eyes, like my neck was bobbing up and down and my eyes were rolling up in my head, and I was going, and I was able to pull myself out of whatever the thing was doing to me. And I said my prayers and I took it off. And those were the three things that I did do. And then shortly after that, I was laying on my bed afraid to do anything because I didn't want them to hurt me. And it seemed like anytime I was doing something productive, they were trying to physically harm me. And so I was laying on my bed staring at the roof. And of course, they were doing noise campaigns every 5 seconds. And I decided to write the poem Watchers. It just came to my head, just like how it always has, how I've always written poetry. I'll just sit there and it'll hit me. Just like when I was sitting in my class and I wrote Say You Love Me about my ex. It just came to me. I hadn't written a poem in a while. And I was just staring at the roof with nothing to do. And I said, damn, these people are always watching me. And then I said, oh, they always watching, like how the supervisor be when you clock in. And I wrote it. I said, let me write this down. I said, that sounds dope. Let me write it down. And I pulled my book out and I wrote the poem down. And I said, let me get my band lab. And I pulled out my band lab and I decided to start recording. And that was literally how I started doing my music again. It was random. And it was because my life was in jeopardy. Every time I tried to do something productive, they were freaking blocking it and having a problem with it. And I was laying there with nothing to do. And I wrote that poem and it inspired me to download my band lab again. And I started doing music again and then heavily recording. More recording than I've ever done in my life, to be quite real with you, because I'm not somebody that records. I recorded by fluke a few years ago, about 4 years ago, with my brother-in-law. That was a fluke, an opportunity I didn't look for. I've always written poetry, but I've never been somebody that recorded myself. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie in front like that's the case. I've never been somebody that recorded myself, never. That thing with my brother-in-law was a fluke. I've always written poetry, but I've never recorded myself. That was a fluke. And I did it and I realized I sounded good and I liked it and I didn't care. I threw it away. I didn't care. It wasn't something that I focused on. It was a hobby I did for a little bit. I threw it to the side. I didn't care. Then years later, this weird thing happens where I get targeted. For 3 years, I'm targeted, not understanding what the hell is going on. I tried to leave island. The weird stuff happened. I come back. I think witchcraft is on me. I start talking about it heavily in my videos and I think making more enemies than I had already made. And I started to just basically heavily talk about the fact that I thought something was on me, right? And I said I might download a Return to Sender book. I said that in my video in December, the first initial How I Became Targeted videos in December. I said on camera, let's tell you, I wasn't hiding it, that I was considering downloading a witchcraft book, but I didn't do it. Instead, I started looking into coding and trying to progress myself, and I was praying instead. And they kept doing what they were doing and antagonizing me. I had the weird dream. About a month later, I did the symbol with my hand. Can't explain why I did it. I think it was mind control. I think they're trying to frame me. Then all of a sudden, they upped the ante with the nano in my body. I suspect they were hitting me with energy weapons because I started getting really sick. And that was when I was like, nah, screw this. I'm downloading that book. And I downloaded the Return to Sender book. I also looked into astrology. And the frequency happened because they threw that shit in my newsfeed, again, trying to frame me likely. And then shortly after that, I started doing my music again randomly. It has no connection to any of that stuff. No connection. I just randomly started doing my music again because I felt like if I did anything else, anything productive, they would start coming for me. I was afraid for my life. Everything I did was a problem. So I started writing poetry. That's a problem too. They try to create another false narrative. Oh, she sold out. It's like weird shit, man. It's weird. It's like, and Eric Snowden talks about this. He said, when you're targeted, be careful. He said, hold on, because they're going to warp everything. That's what Eric Snowden said. He said everything, even in your past, they're going to dig and dig and dig and try to warp everything and paint false narratives about you. It's called social engineering and soft warfare. And it's an assault on an American individual when you become targeted. It's literally you versus the US government, unfortunately. That's what it becomes. Because they've listed you as terrorist, and so they're treating you as such, and they're trying to take you out. That's what you become. And so that's what's been going on when I relocated back to Island. My targeting took on a different form than what it was before I left. I pissed off some powerful people, and I came back and was in for the fight of my life, literally. And that's what's been going on. And they've been painting all these false narratives about me and just warping and creating all this weird shit. I'm so afraid to look at anything because I'm like, what are they going to do next? What are they're going to come with next? Is what I keep feeling like. So that's what's going on with that. I didn't sell out. I have never sold out. First of all, your soul is not yours to sell, so you're not able to sell it anyways. If you read the Bible, you would understand that. And I've never sold out anyways, even if that were a thing that you could do. I never did. And had I sold out, they wouldn't be sending me technology trying to frame me. I would be in good graces with them. Duh. They wouldn't be sending videos talking about me selling out if I had sold out. I would be down with them. Doesn't that make sense? Why would they be trying to paint these false narratives and get me in trouble if I had sold out? That doesn't even make sense. It's stupid and retarded. Excuse me. It gets me angry every time I think about it. I don't mean to say retarded. That's a derogatory term. It's stupid and ignorant. And that was ignorant of me to say retarded. I didn't mean to say retarded. It's ignorant what they're trying to do and the lies and the false narratives they're trying to paint. Anyway, so that's what's going on, guys. I just wanted to document. I'm sitting here talking for hours because I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed. I'm annoyed with what I've been dealing with. I've been dealing with it for 3 years at this point, and the last year has been the worst. Since I tried to relocate and my targeting took a new form, it got to the point where my life was in jeopardy. You know, the shit has even aged me. I was on the path of aging well. I am still aging well. I'm going to say I still look good for my age. You know, not to sound vain or anything. I still do look good for age 31. But the shit has started to age me. At the beginning of the year, I didn't have any lines under my eyes. It's to the point where now I'm looking in the mirror, I'm seeing crinkles under my eyes. I'm seeing a few crinkles under there. I saw a few gray hairs. I saw like 2 gray hairs in my head. Like the shit is actually aging me. I'm not even somebody that takes things on. I'm so good at being able to turn off my emotions. I think that's what pisses the program off. That's why they start upping the ante with the physical with me. Because I'm the kind of target that I'm able to turn off my emotions, and I'm able to think logically and refute the bullshit they come with. And so I'm the type of target that they'll up the physical with. And that's a problem. So it's like the thing is aging me, man. It's ridiculous. I shouldn't be having to deal with the shit I'm dealing with. It's ridiculous, man. And so I pissed off a lot of people, powerful people. So it's like you can't even really get help because you pissed off, I pissed off a lot of people. I offended a lot of people. So it's like you can't even get help. It's crazy. So that's what's going on, guys. I just wanted to record what's happening. It's just documentation. I just wanted to document because, again, like the last week, I want to say they've been up in the ante with what seems to be Havana syndrome. And this morning, in particular, was really bad. I didn't really understand why. They're really up in the ante with the Havana syndrome. And I just wanted to document. Then also I was hearing a lot of yelling outside that sounded like street theater. So I don't know if because I'm hearing other targets say this, and I don't want to say misinformation, but I could believe it. But the technology they could easily chip everyone at this point. And that's from what I understand from the research I've done, the plan anyways. They're planning to enact this technology on everyone. Targets are just a control group experiment before they do it to everyone. So I would not be surprised if everyone were already microchipped with the freaking insect drones that they have. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to be careful with the things I'm saying. But I'm just saying, I hear other targets saying that when you're targeted, the people around you are microchipped and controlled. So I just would not be surprised if that were the case. Because then I wake up this morning, a lot of screaming, and it sounded like fake argument in street theater. And also the humming was happening in my head all morning. And I woke up feeling nauseous. I'm just like, what is really going on? It's just like, this is what made me pick up my phone and start doing this video. Because I really am trying to stay away from making these targeted individual videos. I've said everything I needed to say, and I've already refuted the bullshit that they keep trying to come with. And so for me, it was just like, after that happened, and then I put on that video with Kevin Hunter and it come out with the same sellout bullshit, and the video froze up in the middle and I'm hearing the screaming outside, it enraged me, and not enraged in the way where I'm going to react ignorantly, enraged me more so where I'm going to come and articulate and talk about the bullshit and why it makes no sense. And that's what I did. And this is why I was sitting here making this video and kind of just repeating some of the things I've said numerous. It's tiring. It's exhausting saying the same thing over and over and over again in all your videos, and you know it makes sense, but it's like everyone around you is like freaking like zombies. I'm sorry not to sound disrespectful, but that's what it's like. They're like zombies, like zombie land. It's like weird. Anyways, that's what I wanted to make this video about. This is what it is, guys. I'm just venting, and it's also documentation for my protection. So venting, documentation for my protection, and more refuting of the program and exposing of the tactics used in the program. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out. That's probably 3 hours of me talking.